Fellow sufferers, off we go again. The Jockey Club took away my license for 2 years under Rule X. I don't know the number. But anyhow, it was one of those catch-all rules, bringing racing into disrepute. It could be for relieving yourself on the race course, etc. I had some of the best national hunt horses in the country at the time. I told my solicitor to get the best barrister money can buy. We were lucky to get the late Edward Buchanan, who advised me we would win, but it might take time. I sent all the good horses out to Cormac McCormick's stud and sold them and kept the mother's ones. Suddenly, after a few months, we get a rehearing chaired by the late General Blacker, decent man. I had my license back by lunchtime. I've lost approximately $250,000. How do I get it back? I decided to get stuck in and had bets down $250,000 that I'd train 12 winners by the 31st of December that year. Remember, this was September. And I didn't have 12 winners in the previous 2 years. Well, the rest is history. I hit the jackpot at Folkestone before Christmas with a course called Experimenting, and I had 2 more jokers up my sleeve for Weatherby at Christmas, but I didn't need them. I don't remember much about it except the late Roy Christie, a decent man and a good bookmaker, saying to me afterwards, I thought I had great value. I think he laid me about 3-1. But in the end, it was you who had the value. I'm often asked, why do you not get better horses? Well, don't forget, all the good horses I had, they were all national hunt horses, and they were bought as foals and yearlings. And when you're in that business, it's a long wait. And I never had the heart to start again. So I started buying cheapies, other people's cast-offs. Gives me a challenge. Keeps my brain oiled. Around 1992, with British racing going down the tubes every day, I made one of the worst decisions of my life, which I have regretted ever since. I spent 18 months up and down the country trying to educate trainers, etc., of the dangers the big bookmakers posed. I explained unless we done something, in the next 10 to 20 years, the big bookmakers, sharp as razors, would control racing within 10 to 20 years. That time, the Jockey Club seemed to be asleep, Trainers Federation asleep, Jockeys Association asleep. Well, I predicted they would control racing in the next 10 to 20 years. It has happened in a lot less. I proposed a strike, but there was no backing from the Trainers Federation. It didn't happen because it's the trainers who advise the owners. The trainers' thinking at that time, as I saw it, was if they told the true story, no one would buy a racehorse. Of course, the trainers were looking after their own self-interest rather than the big picture. It could have been different if the trainers were putting down their own money. May I remind you again, I put down my own money. Again, I was 100% right. Where are we today? The big bookmakers are in complete control. They are everywhere. They are sharp and know what they are doing. Whereas the organizations within racing are performing like a dysfunctional family. I'll come back to that later. The bookmaker shops are full of hurly-gurly machines, making a small fortune. Not a penny goes back to racing. And then we have virtual racing. Can you believe it? And again, not a penny going back to racing. The majority of people, go to betting shops to watch real racing, not to play hurly-gurly machines or watch virtual racing. If you take the real racing away, how many people would be playing the hurly-gurly machines or watching virtual racing? What about the owners today? They lose 80% of their money on average overnight if they buy a racehorse. Don't stand up for applause. Those who were guiding British racing for the last 15 years, shame on you. By the way, you will not see the above in newspapers or hear it on racing channels. Don't forget, the above mentioned have to look after their advertisers, for without them, they would not exist. More of that later. And we go to the best period of the day, the thought for the week. I live in Newmarket. There is a big issue seller called Keith, who sits a few days a week outside Boots Chemists on the High Street. On Saturday, he was asked, does ever anyone talk to you? His answer was no. This is a very poor reflection on our society. You should never underestimate the difference a few kind words can make to those people marginalized in our society.